The dull thump of dirt hitting the coffin echoed in the thick gray air. I just stood there, staring as the minister spoke words meant to comfort the mourners. My daughter held my hand tightly, her husband just behind us, gently resting his hand on my shoulder. Beside me stood my son, his girlfriend quietly holding his arm. I'm 49 years old, and I never thought I'd be standing graveside, saying goodbye to my wife. Deep down, I always figured I'd be the one to go first. With the kind of work I did and the way I'd lived my life, I just assumed I'd die before her, and as an old man, not like this. But now, in this moment, I felt ancient. After the funeral came the reception. Person after person came up to me, telling me how sorry they were, how amazing she'd been, how great we were together, how young she was, everything except what I actually needed to hear. We'd been married for over 20 years. 2 kids. Both out on their own now. My daughter, well, our daughter, is married and expecting her first child. My first grandchild. My son's living in New York, working down in the financial district. They're both doing well. With all these people in our house, my house, I kept stumbling over that, the shift from ours to mine. For 2 decades everything was ours. I'm still struggling to adjust to this new version of life, this version without her. There were probably 40 people milling around, talking, trying to be supportive. But all I wanted was to be alone. Feeling overwhelmed, I slipped out into the backyard and headed for the gate, planning to take a short walk just to clear my head. As I was closing the gate behind me, a car rolled up the alley and stopped right next to where I stood. The window rolled down. "How are you holding up?" It was Marie, my wife's younger sister. The last person I wanted to see. Honestly, part of the reason Brenda isn't here anymore is because of Marie. If she had just kept her nose out of things, my wife might still be alive. I told her I was going for a walk, that everyone was inside, and that people had been talking about her. I didn't smile. I didn't invite her along. I just said it like it was. But I should have known better. Marie didn't need an invitation. She brushed right past me and let herself into the backyard like she belonged there. That was just her style, always making everything about Marie. That's why, when she suddenly took an intense interest in Brenda's personal life, alarm bells started going off in my head. It just wasn't like her. She was never that invested in anyone but herself. So yeah, I was suspicious from the start. And now, finally having a moment away from her, I let out a long breath. The tension between us was thick, and whatever relationship we'd had as family, it was gone now. Marie was persona non grata as far as I was concerned. It's a long, messy story, how things went from normal to this. How it all spiraled into the funeral I just endured. But I guess life just keeps going, doesn't it? Like a river, it moves forward whether you're ready or not. So, here's what happened. Here's my story. Brenda and I met shortly after college. I'd gone into her office, an insurance company, to renew my home and car policies. She ended up being my assigned agent. After that first meeting, I kept finding excuses to go back. Eventually, I worked up the courage to ask her out. A few months into dating, we both knew we were in love. We got married, had 2 amazing kids, and for years, our marriage was full and joyful. I never once regretted marrying Brenda. We were incredibly compatible, like 2 puzzle pieces that just fit. Everything was good, until about 2 years ago. That's when Marie suddenly took a deep interest in Brenda's life. I honestly believe she meant well, thinking Brenda needed to grow or become a better version of herself. Marie seemed convinced Brenda had some kind of personal shortcomings, and she made it her mission to help her overcome them. It started with Wednesday night outings. Then Fridays. And as Vince, our neighbor, once pointed out, it eventually became a full-blown routine. Marie started spending more time with Brenda than I did, monopolizing the time when I'd normally be home with her. It turned into all Marie, all the time. Whenever I tried to plan something with Brenda, take her to dinner, have a quiet night together, Marie would be there, inserting herself into the mix. Our relationship, once so open and communicative, slowly closed off. I couldn't talk to Brenda without her getting defensive or accusing me of being unfair to her sister. Eventually, I gave up trying. Every time I reached for my wife, I got pushed away, emotionally, mentally. And Marie was always there, right in the middle. A few months in, when the so-called girls' nights became a fixture in our lives, I could see where things were heading. Our marriage was crumbling, and there was no way to bring it up without setting Brenda off. So I made the worst possible decision. I could have done more. But I didn't. I gave up. Instead of fighting for us, I threw myself into my own hobbies. Brenda started doing her own thing too. On the rare nights we were both home, it felt like we were just two strangers occupying the same space. Then one night, or more accurately, early one morning, everything started to unravel. It was a Friday night, and I was in the garage working on a project. Brenda and Marie had gone out like they always did. They left around 6:30, and as usual, I ended up making dinner for myself. Lately, I'd been eating most of my meals out there in the garage. So I cooked, carried it outside, turned on the old boombox, and let the music keep me company while I worked and ate. I stayed out there until about 11 before heading inside. Part of me expected Brenda to already be in bed, but when I walked in and didn't see her, I was surprised. Then I noticed the answering machine light blinking. The message was from her. She said she was staying at Marie's for the night. Something about being out for a while, having had too much to drink, and not feeling up to driving home. She said she'd see me in the morning. And my first thought? Why even bother? I never saw her anymore anyway. Hell, she might as well just move in with her sister and call it a day. Yeah, I'll admit it, I was angry. And jealous, too. There was a big, aching hole in me that used to be filled with our shared time. And when Marie started showing this obsessive interest in her sister, I didn't know how to get my wife back. I miss Brenda. I missed our conversations, our laughter, the way we used to tease each other in that way only people who really know each other can. I missed our little private jokes, the flirtiness that used to be so effortless between us. I played her voicemail again, then deleted it. But in the background, I heard something, men's voices. It sounded like there was a whole party going on over at Marie's place. That's when the unease started to turn to something darker. I picked up the phone and called her cell. After 9 rings, someone finally picked up. A guy. He said something sarcastic about it being my dime, and told me not to waste it. I told him I was her husband and asked to speak to her. He laughed and said she was busy, and to try calling around noon the next day. Then he said he was her husband, and hung up on me. I was stunned. Then furious. I tried calling again. And again. I must have called a dozen times in the next 30 minutes, but nobody picked up. That's when I grabbed my car keys and drove straight to Marie's place. But when I got there, it was dark. Nobody was home. I'd already tried Brenda's cell. I had no clue where she really was, who she was with, or even if she wanted to be there. My thoughts spiraled. Was she there against her will? Was she safe? Was she with someone else, by choice? I drove home angrier than I'd ever been, angry, confused, and terrified. I went straight to the kitchen and poured myself a drink. And then another. Somewhere in the haze, it hit me, Brenda was doing this willingly. She didn't need help. She didn't need saving. She didn't want to come home. And the cops? They wouldn't do a damn thing. Not until it had been 24 hours. I even started thinking maybe she'd invited those guys over. That maybe the whole thing had been planned. My thoughts got darker, clouded by the booze. Paranoia, jealousy, heartbreak, all of it swirling together. When I woke up the next morning, I had a pounding headache and a mouth dry as dust. I dragged myself into the shower, popped a couple of aspirin, and stared at my reflection. What I saw was a man who looked haunted. Empty. After forcing down a light breakfast, I sat around waiting, either for her to call, or to come home. Around 2 p.m., Brenda finally pulled into the driveway. And she looked amazing. She was wearing one of my favorite dresses, tight-fitting, silky, the kind that showed off her legs and just a little cleavage. The kind she only ever wore on special nights with me. Nights that usually ended in soft lighting and tangled sheets. She walked in like it was just another Saturday. Said she hadn't come home the night before because she and Marie had too much to drink. By the time they got to Marie's place, she was too tired to drive, so she just crashed there. Slept in, showered, and now here she was. She noticed something was off with me, asked why I looked so upset. Called me by name, real gentle. So I told her. I said I'd called her phone the night before. That some guy answered. Said she was busy. That when I said I was her husband, he hung up on me. That every time I called after that, nobody answered. And I pointed at the dress. I asked if she wore it for someone else. I asked where she'd really been, because I'd gone by Marie's and no one was there. Her place was dark. Brenda started to sit down but missed the chair completely, and landed hard on the floor. I think the shock of what I was saying threw her off. She just stayed there, on the floor, her hands over her face, tears pouring out. She didn't move. Didn't speak. She didn't have to. The shame on her face said everything. I stormed out to the garage and slammed the door shut behind me. Locked it. Then cranked the stereo up as loud as I could stand. For the next couple of hours I didn't do much except take out my frustration, smashing things, yelling, cursing out Brenda, Marie, and that random guy who had picked up her phone the night before. Eventually, the rage started to simmer down. I turned off the stereo and just sat there, thinking about how everything had come apart. I blamed Marie for all of it. Before she inserted herself into our lives, Brenda and I had been happy, really happy. We had love. We had connection. But Marie, with all her meddling and constant presence, had driven a wedge between us. Now it felt like Brenda had gone looking for happiness somewhere else, maybe with another man. Or worse, maybe with several. While sitting in that workshop, it hit me hard. I had probably lost her for good. This wasn't a bump in the road. This was the road ending. Divorce felt inevitable. When I finally came back inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I figured Brenda had gone to Marie's again to cool off or avoid dealing with me. But when I walked into our bedroom, I froze. Her dresser drawers were open and empty. The closet? Barely touched. A few old clothes still hung there, the kind she hadn't worn in years. She had left me. It was Saturday, and with the banks closed, the only thing I could do was log in online. I started moving money, shifting things around, trying to protect myself just in case she didn't come back. I wasn't about to let years of hard work and savings go down the drain if Brenda decided to bail for good. Afterward, I called up a buddy of mine, someone who'd been through a divorce, and asked to meet. I needed advice. I also called the kids and gave them a basic rundown of what was going on. I didn't go into too much detail, just told them their mom had left, and I didn't know exactly where she was. When my daughter asked if I knew where Mom had gone, I told her the truth. I had no idea. A full week went by. I buried myself in work, just trying to keep my mind from spiraling. Every night, I'd drink myself numb, pass out, wake up just in time to shower and get back to work. 7 days of silence from Brenda. No phone calls. No texts. She didn't stop by my job. Nothing. I met with my friend, and while he didn't have any groundbreaking advice, his main takeaway was the same thing I was already thinking: protect your assets first. Figure everything else out after. That Saturday night, something inside me snapped. I picked up the phone and called Marie's house. She seemed surprised to hear from me, and even more surprised that Brenda wasn't home with me. Marie assumed she was just laying low, still upset, probably staying close to home. When I told her I hadn't seen Brenda at all, she sounded genuinely confused. I let her have it. I told her she was the reason all this had happened. That this, us falling apart, was because of her. She tried to say I was being harsh, that I didn't mean it. But I did. Everything had been fine until she started dragging Brenda out every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday night. Those Girls' nights had destroyed our marriage. I told her maybe she got what she wanted, whatever that was. Brenda was gone. I was sure we were heading for a divorce. And if Brenda wasn't with her, then she must be with that guy, the one who picked up her phone last Friday night. Marie paused. Then admitted something that stopped me cold. She said Brenda had shown up at her place that Saturday afternoon, freshly showered and wearing that same tight dress, the one she always wore when she wanted to turn heads. Marie told her about the guy who had answered her phone, and Brenda just collapsed on the floor and cried. Later that evening, when Marie came in from the garage, Brenda was gone. She had packed up her things and left without a word. Marie sounded like she genuinely regretted how things had turned out. She said she knew this was her fault, that what she had done had cost me my wife. She begged me not to hang up. But I was too far gone. I didn't want to hear it. Not from her. Not about Brenda. Not about that guy. Not about anything. I slammed the phone down so hard it shattered the handset. Great, another damn thing to replace. It took me a while to pull myself together and head to bed. And as I got up, I realized something. It was the same exact spot where Brenda had sat, crying, not long ago. That image punched me in the gut. By morning, I came to a hard truth: I'd lost. I should have just stayed up all night drinking. Sleep didn't help. It was a bleak gray Sunday. I had no desire to talk to anyone. No energy for conversation. Around noon, I heard a car pull into the driveway. I peeked out the window. It was my son. He walked in and asked what the hell had been going on. Said Mom had shown up at his apartment a week ago, totally wrecked and crying. But she wouldn't tell him anything except that. She said you were going to leave her. That's what my son said as soon as he walked through the door. He wanted to know what the hell was going on. I told him the truth. We were having serious problems, and Brenda had left me. She packed her things and walked out. This was the first I was even hearing about where she'd been all this time. He shook his head and said she'd shown up at his place out of the blue. Said it was kind of awkward. He had a friend over, and she just stayed the night. She hadn't told him much, just that she was upset. He asked when she'd shown up at my place. I told him it was that Sunday, after he had called me and we talked. Apparently, Brenda hadn't wanted me to call him. She was afraid he'd come looking for her. He asked straight out, "Dad, are you going to hurt her?" That hit me like a punch to the gut. I told him no, of course not. I was just tired. I'd spent the last week drowning in stress and worry like nothing I'd ever experienced. And now here he was, driving more than 300 miles on a Sunday, to try to piece together what happened. He said, "Mom told me about going out with Aunt Marie that night. She said you got mad because she missed your call. What got into you, Dad? Why would you react like that?" I stared at him. "That's what she told you? That she just missed my call?" He nodded. I told him there was more to it. That Brenda had left a message saying she was staying at Marie's because she'd had too much to drink. But I'd called her phone, and some guy answered. Before Brenda even knew I was calling, he picked up. He told me she was busy. When I said I was her husband, the guy told me to F*** off and hung up. That's when I got angry, really angry. And scared. And confused. My son looked down, shaking his head. She left that part out. Then he looked at me and asked the question I'd been asking myself over and over. "Did Mom cheat on you?" I told him I didn't know for sure. She left before we could even talk about it. But the way she acted, the guilt in her eyes, it sure felt like something had happened. I hadn't seen or heard from her since Saturday afternoon. He sighed and said, "You guys need to talk. Come over to my place. Both of you. We'll all be there, me and my girlfriend, and we'll help however we can." I agreed. He added that we should come just as we are. "No weapons," he said, half joking but also not. He knew how much I'd been hurting, and he just didn't want things to spiral further. He said he could follow me home afterward or I could ride with him. Either way, he'd make sure I was okay. During the drive to Mark's place, something started to shift inside me. I realized that, I still loved Brenda. Even if she had cheated, even if everything was broken, I loved her. And right then, I think I was willing to try to fix things. To talk. To listen. When we got to his apartment, we parked and headed inside. Brenda was there, sitting on the couch with Mark's girlfriend. When I walked in, both women stood up. Brenda looked nervous. Pale. Her hands fidgeting. She greeted me gently, asked how I'd been. And suddenly, I felt the anger bubbling up again. Without thinking, I snapped, accused her of cheating, yelled that she'd humiliated me. I saw her shrink back from me, flinch. That look on her face, pure fear, stopped me cold. I caught myself. Apologized. Said I hadn't been okay. That I'd been drinking too much lately. That I was confused and heartbroken. And then it hit me, hard. The woman I loved, the one I'd spent decades building a life with, she was afraid of me. That tore something open inside of me. I still loved her. God help me, I did. I didn't know if we could repair what was broken, but I wanted to try. The younger woman beside her stepped forward and introduced herself as Jill. Said she wished we could have met under better circumstances. I shook her hand and told her I felt the same. It was clear from the look I gave Mark that I hadn't known he was seeing anyone. Jill and Mark offered to give us space, but said they'd be in the other room if we needed them. Just try to keep it down, Jill added with a soft smile. The walls here are paper thin. Once they left, Brenda took a deep breath and began to speak. She started to explain everything. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I was ready to hear her. I looked her straight in the eye and asked, "Is there something you need to be sorry about?" Then I asked the real question. "Did you sleep with someone?" She hesitated, said, "It wasn't exactly like that." So I pressed harder. "Was it just one guy? Or was it more?" What she said next knocked the wind out of me. It was like hearing a stranger speak. She admitted it hadn't just been one guy. She said she didn't exactly go into it willingly or with a clear head, she was drunk. Said she'd been drinking heavily that night and things spiraled fast. Marie had been pushing her for weeks to get out, to live a little. And maybe that loneliness, or whatever it was, made her more vulnerable than she thought. She told me it started with one guy. Then, by the end of the night, there were two. Then she said something I couldn't even process at first. Marie was there too. By the end of the night, she said, she'd been with all of them, including her sister. She said the guys had orchestrated things in a way that made her feel like it wasn't fully her choice, but also not something she resisted. She was so far gone by then, too drunk to think about what it all meant. She said she didn't think about me, about our marriage, our life, until the next morning when it was way too late. I just sat there, completely stunned. I had prepared myself for a confession, maybe that she cheated on me with one guy. But this? More than one? Marie? Her own sister? This wasn't the woman I married. It felt like I was staring at someone I didn't know at all. She must have sensed the way my brain was spinning because she spoke again, fast, like she needed to get it all out before I shut down. She said she'd tell me anything I wanted to know. Said she didn't even understand how it happened. That at some point she just stopped remembering I was at home, that we were married, that we had vows. She admitted there was a moment where she was even asking for more. She said she felt disgusting. Said she didn't deserve me, didn't even deserve to live. Then she collapsed into sobs, her body shaking. I watched her, feeling more lost than I'd ever felt. I couldn't recognize the woman crying in front of me. And the longer I sat there, the more my stomach turned. Then I rushed to the bathroom. I threw up everything. After a while, I managed to settle down, drank some water, and wiped my face. I didn't feel any better, just emptier. When I came back to the kitchen, Brenda was still crying, soft and broken. A part of me wanted to go to her, to hold her, to comfort her somehow. But I didn't know if that would ever be okay again. I sat down heavily across from her, still trying to find the right words. Still trying to keep myself from getting sick all over again. She finally spoke again. Said those nights out with Marie weren't about chasing men. She swore this had never happened before. That they'd gone to a new club that night. That she had too much to drink. Said the guys were buying them drinks, dancing, complimenting them, making her feel young again, beautiful, playful. Next thing she knew, she was calling me to say she was too drunk to come home. Then they went to the guy's place. That's when I cut in. You haven't paid any attention to me in months. And you know damn well why. You and Marie never gave me a chance. I tried to take you out. I begged for time with you. And you always chose her. She opened her mouth, probably to defend herself, but I wasn't done. And then you lied to me? That message you left? You said you were at Marie's. But that wasn't true. She looked down, nodding slowly. Then she explained, at the time she left the message, she thought they were going back to Marie's. That was the plan. But the guys convinced them to stop at their place first. Just for a few minutes. To grab something. She said it seemed harmless, until it wasn't. She said she hadn't thought it through. That maybe if I'd been paying more attention to her, she would have had the strength to say no. That's when I lost it. You're blaming me for this? You're saying this happened because I wasn't giving you attention? My voice was rising. I didn't care. I was furious. You were the one pushing me away, Brenda. Every time I reached for you, you turned to Marie. You chose her over and over again. Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Every single damn week. She looked up at me. And for a second, something changed in her eyes. She looked like she got it. She said quietly, "You're right. I didn't realize it until just now, but you're right. I pushed you away. I didn't see it, but I do now." She admitted that spending all that time with Marie had created this distance. That she let it happen. That she had ignored the man she married. And finally, she stopped trying to shift the blame. I looked at her and asked, "Did you enjoy it?" She went quiet, and I pushed a little more, bringing up something she'd said earlier, referring to herself as a scarlet woman. I asked if that's how she saw herself now. She shook her head fast, denying it. Said she hated that phrase. Said she'd never called me that, never wanted me to think she was proud of what happened. But then she said something I wasn't prepared for. She admitted that, yes, she had liked some parts of it. She said the newness of it, the different tastes, sensations, the combinations, those things intrigued her. Some of it was stuff she'd always wanted to try with me, but never had the nerve to ask. Hearing her say that felt like someone had taken a crowbar to my ribs. She said she regretted getting swept up in it. That she hated herself for losing control. For betraying me. She said what hurt most was that she gave them things that were supposed to be just for me. I didn't even know what to say. But I found myself mumbling something I wasn't even sure I meant. Maybe we could get through this. And she jumped on that hope like it was her last breath. She promised she'd do anything, to stay married to me. Said she wouldn't go out again unless I was with her. Said she'd be a stay-at-home wife, give up everything if that's what it took. Begged me not to give up on us. But I was still skeptical. Still guarded. I asked why it had taken all this for her to finally talk to me. Where was all this openness when she was out with Marie every other night? Why should I trust that this new attitude would last? I told her Marie had driven a wedge between us, stolen the time we used to spend together, and she let it happen. She looked down, ashamed, and said she was sorry. That she hadn't realized how much she'd ignored me. That she hadn't seen how she'd been slowly cutting me out. But I made it clear, this wasn't going to be easy. She cheated. She didn't just break vows, she shattered us. I asked her again about that night. About being with those guys. And about lying to me. Pretending she was at Marie's when she was somewhere else entirely. I asked if she would have ever told me the truth if I hadn't found out. The more I spoke, the louder my voice got. The anger was building in my chest, hot and heavy. Brenda could see it on my face. She started to shrink back, and that's when Mark and Jill quietly stepped back into the kitchen. Mark gently suggested we take a break. Maybe I could go on a walk with him, or with Jill, just to cool down. Jill stepped forward and lightly grabbed my arm. I was already halfway out of my chair, but her touch stopped me from rising too fast. Her grip was firm, stronger than I expected. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's take a walk. Get some air. You can talk to me." I nodded. I knew I was too close to losing it. A walk was probably the best idea we had. As we strolled down the block, Jill finally broke the silence. "I know you're angry," she said. "Brenda and I talked a little while Mark went to get you. She's torn up, truly sorry. She's been carrying so much guilt." I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. Eventually, I told her how I saw it. That Brenda hadn't just made a mistake, she'd blown up our marriage. That Marie had taken up all of Brenda's time that used to be mine. That they'd gone out drinking and partying without me, and then one night it went too far. And then there was that awful truth. Her and those men. Her and Marie. I told Jill I didn't know if I could ever forgive that. She nodded slowly, then shared something personal. Told me about her own parents, how her mom once went out with friends and ended up getting involved with another man. At first, she thought it would destroy the family. But somehow they talked. They worked through it. Did they stay married? No. But they found some peace. Jill said what Brenda had done was serious, on many levels. But she didn't think Brenda had stopped loving me. Far from it. "She didn't toss you aside," Jill said. "She made a horrible, horrible choice. One that spiraled. But I don't think she stopped loving you. I think she just lost herself." She said alcohol and whatever else they were taking that night probably stripped away whatever self-control was left. That peer pressure and lowered inhibitions could turn an ordinary night into something irreversible. As we kept walking and talking, I told her how I'd stayed faithful. How I kept showing up. How Brenda had turned her back on me over and over, choosing Marie and her party lifestyle. I wasn't sure if this could ever be fixed. But I wasn't sure it couldn't be either. As we walked, I felt the edge of my anger start to dull. A big part of that was Jill. Her voice was soft, her words calming, and somehow, she made it easier to talk. Still, I admitted that inside I was a wreck. I tried to sound upbeat, maybe to convince myself I was okay, but the truth was, I couldn't shake the emotional mess building inside me. One of the hardest things was trying to wrap my head around how Brenda had let things get so far. I pushed down the anger, focused on staying composed. I knew if I let righteous anger take over, it'd only make things worse. Jill gently encouraged me to ask anything I still needed to know. I tried to lighten the mood, but it was like my heart was carrying too much weight to really lift. She asked what our marriage was like before Marie started hanging around all the time. I told her honestly, yeah, the spark had faded a little. That's natural after 20 years. But I thought we were doing fine. Better than a lot of couples, actually. We had time together. We shared a life. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid. Then she asked if I used to take Brenda out often, keep the romance alive. That hit a nerve. I paused, then admitted that maybe I had taken her for granted. And Marie? Marie was like a wedge driven right between us. Every time I tried to plan something, she'd either talk Brenda out of it or get upset that I was stealing her away. I told Jill how frustrated I was with her. I even called her the bitch, not caring how childish it sounded in that moment. Jill pushed a bit further, asking about the romantic side of our relationship. Not just the physical stuff, real romance. And yeah, I had to own up to it. I'd let that slide. Somewhere along the line, I stopped putting in the effort. I just assumed that after so many years together, we didn't need all that. I told her I regretted not showing Brenda how I felt more often. I could have done better. I should have made her feel special, wanted. Jill nodded, saying that it's the little things, small gestures, that keep a relationship strong. I agreed, feeling the weight of my own mistakes settling on my chest. Still, I pointed out that Marie had already soaked up so much of Brenda's time, I barely got a shot at equal time anymore. She reminded me that some of our biggest arguments had been about those girls' nights. That Brenda had seemed more invested in her sister than in our marriage. Jill wasn't excusing what Brenda did, but she was pointing out the obvious. We had drifted apart, and communication had fallen apart long before that night. I squinted at her, suddenly unsure. Are you taking Brenda's side? She shook her head. No. I'm on your side. I'm on the side of what you two had, and maybe still have. But Brenda clearly needed something she wasn't getting. If you both talked more openly earlier, maybe none of this would have happened. I told her I had made an effort. That I never once thought about cheating, no matter how bad things got. She put a hand on my shoulder. Then talk to her. Just talk. Calmly. Honestly. Mark thinks the world of you. And maybe this doesn't have to end in divorce. She said if we could both stop running from the pain and start talking, really talking, maybe, just maybe, we could move forward. Not forget, but move on. I wished I had half the confidence Jill had. She spoke with the kind of insight that only comes from living through something like this. I guessed her parents' story had taught her more than she let on. Back at Mark's place, Brenda was waiting at the kitchen table, looking composed. Her eyes found mine as I walked in. I sat down across from her, taking a deep breath. I don't even know where we stand right now, I said. I honestly don't. Brenda looked down, then back up at me. I want to be with you. I do. But I know you might not want me after this. She apologized, genuinely. But she didn't pretend it could fix everything. Saying sorry won't undo what I did, she said quietly. But I'm here. I'm willing to face it. I nodded slowly. It's not just the cheating. It's how it happened. Who was involved? Multiple people. Your sister. I told her how hard it was for me, how painful it was to feel like I'd been chasing her, begging for her attention, only for her to be completely unresponsive. And now, after that night, suddenly she wanted a second chance. Brenda's voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't go out looking to cheat. But I was drinking. I made the worst choices I could have made. And there we were, just two broken people sitting across from each other, trying to figure out if love was enough. I asked her the question that had been sitting heavy in my chest. Is there even still room for me in your life? I needed to know, because everything she'd done, all the choices she made, they'd left a scar on us. The kind that doesn't fade easily. Brenda didn't try to spin anything. She just looked at me, her voice trembling. Please don't say that. I love you. I know I messed up bad. I can't undo what happened that night. I wish I could. But I'm hoping, praying, you can find a way to forgive me. That maybe we can trust again someday. Then she suggested something unexpected, a trial separation. She said maybe it was the only way to figure out what came next, given how uncertain everything felt. A tear slid down her cheek, and I could see that she was bracing herself for whatever decision I made. And there I was, torn down the middle. Part of me took some bitter satisfaction in seeing her hurting. But deeper than that, there was still love. Still a desire not to lose her completely. Brenda said she'd understand if I wanted a divorce. That she didn't have any excuses. That no words could change what she'd done. But she'd respect my choice. Reluctantly, she agreed to a trial separation, if that's what I needed. Before I could even say anything back, Jill jumped in. No, she said firmly. That's the worst thing you could do right now. We all turned to her. Jill spoke with this quiet authority that made us listen. She said a trial separation, especially with how fragile things already were, would fast-track a divorce. She'd seen it before. Her parents had lived through it. Instead, she suggested something different. Separate, but in the same house, she said. Stay under the same roof. Face the pain together. Talk. Work through it. Because running away won't help. You need to stay in it to fix it. I just sat there, taking it all in. There was a certain truth in what she said. I knew it. But I couldn't shake the other thoughts running through my head. The darker ones. The ones where I wondered if I'd ever stop being angry. Where I questioned if I could resist lashing out, if I could even look at Brenda without breaking something, or breaking down. Jill's voice broke through again, this time addressing both me and Mark. She was worried. And Mark, always the steady one, jumped in and asked what I was thinking. I told them the truth. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't sure if a trial separation, especially living under the same roof, was safe. Not because I'd want to hurt her, but because of the amount of rage I was still carrying. I hated it, but it was real. They nodded. Jill reminded me again that her parents had gone through hell, but staying together gave them a fighting chance. She believed we could do the same. I thought about it. I didn't want to make a decision while feeling this raw. So I told them, clearly, that I wasn't going to be pressured into anything. I wasn't making a life-altering choice in the middle of this storm. Instead, I asked Mark to drive me to a motel for the night. I promised I'd think about it, really think, and let them know my decision in the morning. Update. The next morning, I came back in a cab. When I stepped into the apartment, Brenda was still sitting in the same spot as when I'd left. Her eyes were red and swollen. Mark and Jill looked like they hadn't slept either. The whole place felt heavy, like we'd all been holding our breaths since yesterday. I took a deep breath and gave my answer. I told Brenda to come back home. I promised her I'd do everything I could not to hurt her, physically or otherwise, but I also warned her I couldn't promise there wouldn't be angry moments. I was still carrying a lot of pain. So, I proposed a compromise. We'd live in the same house but in separate bedrooms. No physical closeness. Just the two of us trying, day by day, to work through the wreckage. Brenda's face crumpled. Tears spilled again. She nodded, clearly relieved, but I saw the fear in her eyes too. She was probably wondering if she'd made the right call, if I might snap. Hell, I had the same fear. That kind of trust? It doesn't grow back overnight. And ours was shattered. She suggested we go to counseling. Something I had actually thought about back when the late-night outings with Marie started becoming a pattern. I agreed. We needed it, both as individuals and as a couple. I told her we'd start the process first thing the next day. Then she left the kitchen, came back a minute later with her suitcases. Mark stood up and asked if we were ready to go home. I said yeah, but my car was in a parking garage across town. Without hesitation, he offered to go get it. Jill said she'd drive us wherever we needed. Then Mark dropped a bomb on us. He looked at Jill, then back at us, grinning. I proposed last Saturday, he said. And she said yes? I told Mark and Jill how happy I was for them. No matter what happened between Brenda and me, Jill was part of the family now. I wished them nothing but love and happiness. We all headed home together. The drive was quiet, intense, really. Each of us was lost in our own thoughts. That whole next week carried the same heaviness. The tension in the air never let up. Our first counseling appointment as a couple was coming up, and honestly, I wasn't sure we'd make it that far. But somehow we did. Barely. And then we made the next one. And the one after that. Week by week, session by session, we started to find a way through the mess. The counselor worked with us for 8 months, sometimes together, sometimes separately. It was grueling. It was painful. But eventually, we got released to work on our relationship without the training wheels. We made it through the nightmare. Not untouched. Not unchanged. But together. Then one day, Brenda came home from a doctor's appointment looking different. Quiet. Shaken. I could tell something was wrong. She didn't say much at first, just went for a long walk by herself. When she finally came back, she found me sitting in the living room and stood there for a minute before saying, "Jeff, I've got some bad news." My heart dropped. I asked her what it was. I knew she'd never cheat on me again, we'd moved beyond that. But something had been weighing on her lately, and I could tell this was bigger than anything we'd dealt with. She burst into tears. "I'm sick, Jeff. Really sick. I have cancer. She told me it started in her ovaries and had already spread. They hadn't caught it early. She didn't even finish her sentence. I knew what she meant. I sat there, numb, just like I had the day she first left. She kept trying to be strong, saying, "We'll fight this, Jeff. There are treatments. We can beat it." I tried to believe her. I really did. I told her I'd be there every step of the way. But I could see something in her face that scared me. A kind of quiet resignation. Eventually, she admitted what the specialist had told her that morning. The cancer had spread, lymph nodes, liver, possibly even her brain. She was waiting on an MRI to confirm. The doctor had nearly cried giving her the news. "I don't want to die, Jeff," she whispered, sobbing. "I love you." Then she said the part that broke me. "I wasted so much time, Jeff. Time with Marie, the fights, the stupid choices. I ignored the symptoms. I didn't go to the doctor when I should have. I thought Marie needed me more. I was wrong. And now it's too late." She told me she had just a few months left. "I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm so sorry." All I could say was, "Brenda, I'm the one who's sorry. What can I do for you? What do you need from me?" She just looked at me with tear-filled eyes and said, "Hold me, Jeff. Just love me and hold me. That's all I want now." So that's what I did. Gone were the days of rage and heartbreak. Now we had a new enemy, cancer, and it was crueler than any betrayal could ever be. Despite everything, we'd had a good life together. And now, I focused on giving her peace and comfort. I tried to keep things light, to make her smile, even as she slowly wasted away. At one point, we thought the treatments might be helping, but that hope was short-lived. She held on longer than the doctors predicted. A few extra months. And when her time finally came, our kids and I were right there beside her. She didn't die alone. And that's why I still struggle with how I feel about Marie. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe I should let go and move on. But deep down, I can't shake the belief that Marie led Brenda into a spiral that almost destroyed us. We lost nearly a year of our lives, time that should have been spent loving, not healing from a one-night disaster. And the worst part? I'll never stop wondering if Brenda's cancer could have been caught earlier, if things had been different. But I'll never know. And I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life.